The Chicago Bulls sit out another trade deadline. They're looking again to the buyout market, and it seems like AK might have given up on this season and possibly a key player that is a part of this team. We'll talk about all that and more in today's episode of the Windy City Breeze. Let's go. Now, if you are new to the channel, please like the video. Please subscribe to the page. We do talk Chicago sports daily on this channel. It's the only channel talking Chicago sports, how Chicago talk. So make sure that you get in tune with us, man. So here's the thing at the end of the day. Bulls did nothing in the trade deadline, right? One of three teams to sit out the trade deadline. They basically didn't want to sell this year, and we're trying to buy, according to Artūras Karnišovas, but they didn't want to pay the price that teams were asking. So now I start to dig into some of his comments. Now I start to dig into some of the reports after that, because why wouldn't you want to add to this team? Why wouldn't you want to do more for this team, right? If you believe in this team. And here's some of the comments that AK had to say that make me believe that he might be ready to move on, but he doesn't know what that next step is going to be just yet, right? So let's listen to let's talk about some of what he says. He said there were so many buyers, so there were a lot of teams that didn't want to take a step back, including us. They tried to improve the team, but at what cost? The price was not okay with us. So I think the next stage for us that we've passed the trade deadline is to evaluate this group the next 28 games. The beginning sounds like, right, like evaluating this group the next 28 games, which means, okay, you sound like you're trying to sit here and very much like when you first got here, right? Like, we're still evaluating. We're still evaluating Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan and Nikola Vucevic 2 years into this, right? And they played together a good chunk of the season. We're evaluating. Okay, that doesn't sound like you have a belief in what this team is going to be able to do. Then it says, mediocrity and average is not okay with us. Well, that doesn't seem to be what's being put on the floor night in and night out. That doesn't seem to be the product that's being put on the floor night in and night out. I'll tell you what, I looked at that Bulls team last night. They looked like they checked off both the boxes of mediocre and average at best. And then finally, right, says, but the next step is what's going to happen the rest of the season, and then we can address during the draft and free agency our shortcomings. We're not at the playoffs yet. We're not at the playoffs yet. We're not to the point where we should be talking about the draft and free agency yet. We just got through the trade deadline, right? But it sounds like AK has finally gotten to the point where he says, listen, this was a team that we wanted to make work. Yes, we've signed Zach LaVine to this contract. Yes, maybe we want him to be a part of this entire thing. But the group that we have here isn't the group that's going to get us the wins. And we can see that now. And I think he wanted to wait till this season to see that. The fact that he's already talking about the draft, he's already talking about the free agency, he's already talking about the future of this organization means that I think that he's done with this season already. He knows we're not going anywhere. He says that the expectation is to make the playoffs and to win in the playoffs, but he realizes that this team can't win in the playoffs. He realizes this team isn't going anywhere, right? And I'll tell you this right now. The one part about this that always confuses me is, right, okay, you want to make this pivot, you want to make this change. How do you do that? What are the pieces that are going to get you there? Or at least can you identify as we go through the rest of these 27 games, right? What are the pieces that have kept you away from getting to that next level? Because you re-signed Zach LaVine, you got DeMar DeRozan, right? Those pieces should work well together. Is it the simple fact that you don't have a point guard? I think that does hurt you a lot. But how much does Lonzo Ball being on this team change our win record? Is Lonzo Ball a 10-win player? Because right now, at this point in the season, the Bulls should be at least 10 wins better based on the product that was sold to us. And so I fully believe that Artūras Karnišovas is done with this season. I think he's going to be done with this current Bulls regime, but he's got to ride this out till the end of the year. And here's the thing, right? Giving up, as if this is the case, it's how I'm interpreting these comments, right? This is my opinion. These are my feelings alone. Doesn't mean that this is what AK has said. Doesn't mean that this is how he feels, right? Although the comments are his. The thing for me is, if you feel like you have nothing to give to this season, if you feel like this season is over with, then it makes sense to not trade anything, because why would I give away my assets right now when literally I can give them away next year, right? Like it doesn't change it. DeMar DeRozan actually would be on a better value deal next year. Zach LaVine is going to be another year older. You may be able to rehab this offseason with all the little nicks and dinks that he's got, right? Nikola Vucevic could be a part of a sign and trade if you're going to go down this route. But here's the thing that I'm seeing with this Bulls team and with what AK is doing. It makes sense not to give up the assets. But the fact that you wouldn't invest into this team tells me everything I need to know about what you think about this season. You wouldn't invest it. You don't believe in this team. You don't believe that this team can go far. I don't believe this team can go far either. I told you, 5 games above 500, I'll start to believe. And you're trying to let the team show you what they can do. The fact that he says that he went to Billy Donovan and he was a part of the meetings that they've had with the team and they've tried to encourage this team lets me know that he's basically saying, hey, listen, the players have to do better. The players have to do more. And I'm going to be honest with you. I think Billy's pretty mediocre too. I think Billy's got a lot of issues. I look at last night's game, Zach LaVine with the hot hand, and Billy Donovan says, hey, bud, you're 26 years old. I know that you're a young player and you've got plenty of energy to go around here, but how about you come sit on this bench with me? I don't know what that move is, right? I think that the Bulls are showing for the most part that they're okay with mediocrity. But at the end of the day, what are we heading towards? We're heading towards a play-in spot at best at this point, right? Maybe a high play-in spot, but a play-in spot at best unless we go on some kind of streak. We're heading towards a first-round exit more than likely unless we go on, right? Like we catch a heater over the next 27 games. I don't anticipate that happening, right? And then we run this back again, right? I get the idea of not rushing into it. I get the idea of not jumping into it. But at this point, you can't run this back. At this point, you can't restart this organization. Or I'm sorry, you can't restart what we have happening this season, because there's no player out there. While there are players that are out there that would absolutely help, right? And I think the buyout market is going to be an interesting process. Maybe we bring in Russell Westbrook for some interesting basketball for a year. And I'll tell you this, Russell Westbrook's going to help the Bulls win. You can be upset about it. He's going to help the Bulls win because he's just going to facilitate everything. He's going to attack the bucket. He's going to be exciting. Bulls fans are going to fall in love with him. I'm telling y'all this right now. I know everybody's, oh my God, why would you ever get Russ? I'm telling you, I said the same thing to y'all about Alex Caruso. Yeah, when we signed him, everybody was like, why would we ever sign that guy? I was like, he works hard. He's heart hustling muscle. You're going to love this guy by the end of the year. Y'all loved him like 20 games in, right? I'm telling you, if they bring in Russ, Bulls fans are going to fall in love with this guy. But the thing is, at the end of the day, that doesn't fix everything that's happening here. It doesn't. And that's the problem. There's too many issues that are happening here that signing guys this season doesn't fix. And I'll tell you what, I think that AK is going to take it a step further this offseason. I think that we're heading towards a bigger rebuild than maybe we thought, a bigger reset. I don't want to say a rebuild, a bigger retool than maybe we thought, man. I want to talk about that as well. But before I do, man, I want to know how you guys feel. Let me know in the comments below. I'll be down there talking with you as well. What do you think about the Chicago Bulls doing nothing at the trade deadline? What do you think about AK's belief in this team? How far do you think this Bulls team goes? Let me know in the comments below, man. I'll be down there talking with you guys as well. So we also got a report yesterday per David Kaplan, and I know many people like to call him Cap, right? Like they just don't believe a lot of what he says, but I noticed that happens when Cap says something that doesn't affect us, right? Like in a positive way. Like I noticed that's when people a lot of times want to go at Cap, want to attack Cap, right? Like you don't know what you're talking about. A lot of times it's when he says something that we don't like to hear. But he reported yesterday that the Chicago Bulls have had a rift between Billy Donovan and Zach LaVine. And we've heard this all year, right? That this is stemming back to when Zach got benched early on in that Charlotte game, right? Early on in the season where he was like 0 for 14. I'm sitting there losing my mind because he's complaining about being benched by Billy Donovan, right? So I think that is, you know, that plays into it. But according to Cap on ESPN 1000, Zach LaVine's relationship with head coach Billy Donovan has sailed, and everyone else in the Chicago Bulls locker room is on Billy Donovan's side. I'll say this. I reached out to some of my own sources. It's weird to call them sources. They're people I know, but they're part of the organization. I reached out to people that I do know that are closely connected. And I'm not going to say that I've heard that it is done, right? I'm not going to say that I've heard that Zach LaVine is just completely out of here. But I have heard that there is some disgruntled, is disgruntled the word, right? Like, there is some dismay with Zach LaVine's attitude, with his performance, with how he's come out on a day in, day out basis, right? Not to say that the Bulls are done with him. I haven't heard that. I can only speak to what I've heard from the people that I know. But I can see it not being far-fetched that what David Kaplan is reporting here is true. And I'm going to be honest with you, the fact that you wouldn't go out and try and get Zach LaVine some help, right? Like I was talking about, tells me that you don't have a belief in this team, and more so tells me that you don't have a belief in Zach as a player right now, because if you believed in Zach as being the player that was going to lead you into this playoff run that's going to be miraculous, right? You go get him some help. You go find him more. You go add more to it, right? And so I think we could be heading toward an offseason, and I think that the trade talks at the deadline to try and trade away Zach LaVine were possibly true. I do. I think that we could have been leading towards a trade. Now, I also heard that not only was that trade talked about, but the Knicks weren't really high on making the trade, right? So like you also have to have two to tango at the end of the day. But the thing for me is that the Chicago Bulls at this point are looking at Zach LaVine as a nice player. And I told y'all this, you had to re-sign Zach LaVine. You had to bring Zach back into the building because you had to reset the image of the Chicago Bulls. The Chicago Bulls were looked at as a dead franchise. The Chicago Bulls were looked at as a garbage organization that didn't treat its players well, that didn't show its players love, that didn't repay its players, pay its players to go out there and perform on a night in, night out basis. And you know what? Zach LaVine on a night in, night out basis came out here in some of the worst times with the Chicago Bulls, and he gave his all. I don't know if the money has changed that. I don't know if just being coached by Billy, if he's not a fan of Billy Donovan, he's not a fan of his style, if he's not a fan of how DeMar DeRozan has been put in certain positions and Zach LaVine hasn't, right? I don't know what the issue is there. But I absolutely think that we could be heading towards, I don't think that it's far-fetched to say we could be heading towards a team that is trying to retool by moving on from Zach LaVine and his big contract. You gave him the money, you allowed him to be paid. He's going to get his $215 no matter where he goes. Hey, we appreciate you for everything you've done for the city of Chicago, but we don't want everybody else is pulling on the rope this way and you're pulling on the rope another way. I'm not sitting here telling you that the relationship is dead. I'm not sitting here telling you that there's no way that the Chicago Bulls can come together and all kumbaya this thing together, right? But I am telling you that I'm hearing similar things about I don't know if I would say the rift, but I'm hearing similar things about some issues that teams are having with, or that the team is having with Zach LaVine. And it does stem back to kind of how his attitude on working with the team and his position with the team and different things like that, right? So I don't know what this ends up being, but I was not surprised yesterday when I heard that the Bulls might be trying to trade Zach. I was not surprised yesterday when I heard that the Bulls might be trying to find the best package for Zach. I didn't think that a deal would get done. I didn't think it was realistic. I absolutely didn't think that Nick deal was going to get done, but I absolutely would have taken it. 3 first-round picks for Zach LaVine. I'd love it. But I think that when you look at a couple of different things, when you look at the fact that AK didn't want to rebuild with this team, didn't want to invest into this team, not saying the team in general, but into this team, he didn't want to invest into this team. I think that you could look at that and say, hey, maybe he's evaluating these assets a little bit more closer than we're seeing Or maybe there are things behind the scenes that are changing why he's being less aggressive. He doesn't get a pass on this either. I think you always put the best team on the floor. I think you have to go out and you have to make trades. I think you have to go out, you have to make decisions. If for nothing else to say, hey, in the long run, I believe in so-and-so. If for nothing else to say, hey, in the long run, I think this guy's going to be a really good asset on our team. There's no way that you think you take Zach LaVine off of this team and this team is better. I don't think the wins change. I don't think the losses change. I think you are where you are right now. I think you have more of a focal point to go to DeMar one-on-one, but I think you have less of a system. The issue with this team isn't just DeMar DeRozan and Nikola Vucevic. Heck, Vooch has been really consistent, right? I wouldn't be surprised if the Bulls re-signed Vooch and tried to move on from one of the other two. But I think the problem here is, and the biggest problem here, is the continued lack of development with this team. Ayo Dosunmu has taken a considerable step back. I know he's played better before the Brooklyn game, right? Last couple of games offensively, but his defense has taken a real step back. He has not been the defender that we thought he was at one point, right? He just hasn't. And so to me, I'm sitting here and I'm looking at where this Bulls team is kind of trying to head, and I don't have an answer. You know what I mean? I'm looking at where this Bulls team is kind of trying to head, and I'm sitting here and I'm like, yeah, like you take these guys off of this team and nothing changes. You take Zach away, you take P. Will, you take Kobe White, you take them off of the team. Nothing changes. What changes? And so to me, I'm now at a point where I think AK's done with this season. I think it looks like the players are also kind of done with this season after what we saw in Brooklyn last night. I don't know what the answer is going to be, and it's a wait and see approach, man. Hey, I do want to know how you guys feel, man. Let me know in the comments below. I'll be down there talking with you as well. As always, man, it's your boy Pat the Designer back at it again to continue watching our Chicago Bulls content. Click the links on the screen or check the links in the description below. Y'all stay safe out there, Chicago. Peace.